Hello, my name is Kate Jones, and I'm here to introduce myself and discuss a little bit about the role of federal, state, and local government in education. So, first thing to know about me is this is my family. Uh, my husband, Rich, my sons, Richie and Brian. In addition, we live in Union Beach, New Jersey, which is right across the water from Manhattan and Brooklyn, which is nice because we're from Brooklyn. So it's nice to be able to see where we're from, but be far enough away where it's much quieter life. We love baseball. Let's go Mets. And in addition, personally, I love reading. I love history podcasts, education podcasts, and making attempts to organize our very crazy life. Education wise, I originally received my BA in journalism from Brooklyn College, and then went on to get my master's from Brooklyn College as well in social studies 7 to 12. I've been enrolled here at Fort Hayes off and on since 2018. I took some time off during the COVID stuff because, life got a little crazy at home. But I think I only have about 2 or 3 classes left, so exciting time. Uh, for the last 11 years, I was working at St. Edmund Prep in Brooklyn, New York, where I taught social studies, and I was also the IB diploma program coordinator, testing coordinator, NHS moderator, and the social studies department chair. Currently, I work at a small Catholic school in New Jersey called Holy Cross Academy, where I am the social studies teacher for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I'm also a virtual social studies instructor for Hudson Global Scholars. So, a little bit about the levels of government control in public education. Most of the support that schools are receiving are going to come from the federal and state government, at least most of the financial support. So the federal government really gives support through funding. And that funding comes with the accountability in the form of reporting test scores. So the federal government requires that all schools that receive funding report test scores in core areas. Federal government is also responsible for ensuring that schools are providing access to all students. And this is in coordination with the IDEA law regarding students with disabilities, as well as the Civil Rights Act. We have seen an increase in federal oversight coming from No Child Left Behind, and following those rules in order to get that federal funding. State governments, though, are the primary oversight of schools, even though they even choose to delegate most responsibilities to the local governments. Still, the state is what determines the standards, and the state is who provides for most of the operating costs. The local governments will oversee most of the operations of the schools through the school board and will help with funding through property taxes. So all three have an important role, even though the local will be the ones most in charge of ensuring the day-to-day operations of the school. So who runs these groups? The U.S. Department of Education is run by the Secretary of Education, who's currently Dr. Miguel Cardona. And we know that the Secretary oversees the funds that are distributed to education based on ESSA and No Child Left Behind provisions. The cabinet members and employees of the USDE are paid. State education is overseen, at least here in New Jersey, by the acting commissioner of education, Angelica Allen McMillan. And the NJDE oversees the allocation of funds and assures that all students are receiving equitable access. And NJDE employees are paid. The local education groups, specifically the school boards for each area, specifically here in New Jersey, we have school districts, it seems, every couple of blocks. So in my small area, our local school board is appointed or voted by the local councils or citizens. Most board members are unpaid. But the board then decides how to allocate the funds given to them by the state and federal governments. Superintendents and, of course, the education staff will receive salaries, but the board does not. Local governments have the most control over the schools, but are very much tied to the federal and state governments because the reality is we need their money. So, looking at the NS6 components on our assignment and the standards in general, it seems that the local governments have the most control over the everyday running of the school buildings and ensuring that schools are following laws and policies. Still, it is nearly impossible to run a school without the funding set aside from the state and federal governments. So while the local government has the most control, the state and the federal government are over there hanging out on their shoulders, making sure that they are doing the right thing. So they really are a team effort, though the local government is the one who's overseeing it. So, how does this support students? Our local governments are ensuring that the schools are running properly. So they're making sure that the students have everything that they need. That includes hiring the right superintendent, the right school faculty and staff. Still, they do this with the help and resources given to them by the federal and state governments. All of that together will ensure support of the student. Many public school districts, charter schools, independent, and religious schools are tied to the funding from the federal and state government. So testing in core subject areas is necessary. So getting the training in order to test in those core subjects areas are also necessary. A couple of other things that the local government has to do in order to support the students. We need to follow the laws set out by the federal and state government. So it is absolutely integral for local governments to ensure that schools are ensuring equitable access to all, following all disability laws, all civil rights laws, and making sure that every student is given an equal opportunity. So our course learning outcomes are here. Again, we referred to these before, but the local government really does evaluate, develop, and implement management, communication, technology, school level governance. All of these are overseen by the local government. I believe that this had a very important correlation to our course because it's necessary to understand how federalism works when we're looking at the funding that's coming in and who's actually in charge of what. And I've seen my own school leaders poring over paperwork, answering calls from the state, and just to make sure that the next check comes in so that we can better serve our students. I also learned quite a bit about how the federal role in education has increased and what that's meant. So I thought that this was a very, very helpful activity. Okay, here are my references, and thank you guys so much for your time.